God tells him to go to the promised land, and by Moses is leading them, and it says the Israelites had no positive vision for their lives, no dreams. They knew where they came from, but they did not know where they were going. Everything was based on what they had seen and could see. They did not know how to see with the eye of faith. And really, when you start your walk with Christ, you know where you've been, you know your past, you know where you're at right now, but you don't know where God's going to lead you. And sometimes it's scary, but you have to have that mindset. You have to have that positive thinking. You have to believe in the Lord that He's going to take you somewhere that's better than where you're at right now. And He doesn't care about your past life and what your circumstances are right now. He just cares on where He's going to bring you. And really, He came to make well and heal the sick, the brokenhearted, wounded, the bruised. And I think I should say some of you have had a rough past, or you're in a bad circumstance right now. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a positive mindset going forward and just reach in your daily walk for Christ and progress and to where He can bring you out of that stuff, and He can make you new.
Amen. Yes.
And this scripture says, it's Luke 4:18 and 19, and this has the King James Version. It says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because He hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord." And she goes on to say how she came from a background of abuse, and she was raised in a dysfunctional home, and how she always blocked people out, and she never let anybody in. But as she started to live for Christ and follow the Christian lifestyle, just like the Israelites, she knew where she had been, but she didn't know where God was going to take her. And she had to believe that Jesus was going to set her free. If y'all want to be set free, y'all can't just sit there and do nothing. Y'all got to believe. Y'all got to have faith. Right. You can't just sit and wait back for the Holy Spirit or God or anything. You got to take that leap of faith. You got to, you got to take that leap. And we'll find where I'm going to get off topic. And she goes on to talk about getting a new mindset and leaving that bad one behind. For one, you have to believe that all things are possible with God. You can do amazing things when you're with Him. And we serve a God who created everything, and even when there was nothing. He created everything. He's so powerful and just the best God ever. But all you have to do is give Him what you got. If you got nothing, give Him your nothingness, and He's gonna take those things. He's going to take nothing. He's going to go to work. As long as you're believing in him and have your faith in him, he's going to, he's going to start working in your life, and you're going to be able to see it. And down here she starts talking about eyes to see and ears to hear. And Isaiah 11:1-3 says, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears." And basically she's talking about, or the Bible is talking about, you have to have those spiritual eyes and those spiritual ears. And although you can see miracles happen on earth and see them with your own eyes and stuff, but you have to have that sight that sees the Spirit and not the world, because the world it's a dirty place and it's nothing to play around with, and you have to keep your ears open and your eyes open and be looking for that Spirit that God is trying to lead you, and not pay attention to worldly things. And really with this chapter, it's talking about my future is not determined by my past or my present. And really, when it comes to your future, you got to let God lead you in the way that he's leading you. You can't get out of his will. If your will is to go and do something, there's a number of things that he calls us to do, but each one of us are called to do at least one thing. And you can't get out of that. He's going to lead you. You can't run. And it's really mainly talking about the story of the Israelites and how they're walking through and they got all this doubt in their mind and they're not being positive at all. They're asking Moses and God why he's leading them out of Egypt. And really what I see when I hear this is they didn't have their eyes on the Lord. They were looking at all the problems that are going down the road, and they were just doubting everything. They weren't trusting God. You got to put your trust in God if you want to get to where you're going. And God was taking them through to the promised land, and he wanted them to focus on him, and they were not doing that. And Numbers 14:2-3 said, "All the Israelites grumbled and deplored their situation, accusing Moses and Aaron, to whom the whole congregation said, 'Would that we had died in Egypt, or that we had died in this wilderness? Why does the Lord bring us to this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and little ones will be a prey. It is not better for us to return to Egypt.'" And basically, as you can see, their mindset is just totally negative. And that was the problem, was them being so negative. And really bad thoughts produce bad attitude. And my parents, when I was little, when I would get a bad attitude, they would always tell me that you put good in and you're going to get good out, and you put bad in, you're going to get bad out. And if you're always doubting yourself, if you aren't putting your trust in the Lord, if everything about your day you're just noticing the bad stuff, then you need to get a new mindset, and you need to start focusing on the Lord, and you need to have that joy in your heart. And that joy is what's going to make you not notice those bad things or notice them and let them ruin your day. You can keep on going and just be the happiest man throughout your day because you got that joy in your heart.
Amen.
And Numbers 22-4 says, "Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled together against Moses and Aaron. And the people contended with Moses and said, Would that we have died when our brethren died before the Lord? And why have you brought up the congregation of the Lord into this wilderness, that we should die here, we and our livestock?" And back to what I was saying earlier is you gotta have your trust in God. And those guys right there, they did not have their eyes on the Lord. And basically, when you're not trusting God, He's not going to take you in that situation, or He's not going to take you in that path that you need to be going down if you can't even put your trust in Him. He only asks for small things, and He'll do great things with your life. But you have to put your full trust in Him. And Numbers 21:4 and 5 say, "And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient, depressed, much discouraged because of the trials of the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and we loathe this life." Manna. And it goes on to say that the people of Israel, they weren't looking at where they were going with the Lord. They were looking behind them. And with your past life, if you are looking behind you, you can't move forward because you're just going to let that eat you up. You need to empty off that backpack of stuff you got weighing you down, and you need to start moving forward. You need to start trusting God and taking that step of faith. And the people of Israel just, they couldn't see that. And with their forefather Abraham, he went through some disappointing experiences in his life, but he didn't allow the negativity to affect his future. And really, when it comes to your future, you have to have a positive attitude about where you're going. And it starts talking about, it's going from Genesis, talking about Abram's cattle and Lot's cattle. And it says, "And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzites were dwelling then in the land. So Abram said to Lot, Let there be no strife, I beg of you, between you and me, or between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are relatives. It is not the whole land before you. Separate yourself, I beg of you, from me. If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right, or if you choose the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot looked and saw that everywhere the Jordan Valley was well watered. Before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, it was all like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you go to Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself all the Jordan Valley, and he traveled east, so they separated. And in this story, really what they're trying to get at you is Abraham's his attitude towards what just happened. And he could have had a bad attitude and went and threw a fit and everything, but he chose to, have no strife with his with Lot, and he had a good attitude, and the Lord ended up blessing him actually for his positive thinking and his positive mindset, his attitude and everything. And it says in Genesis 13, 14, 15, the Lord said to Abram after Lot had left him, "Lift up now your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see I will give to you and to your posterity forever." And even though he was in, it seemed like less desirable circumstances, the Lord came and blessed him with more than he could ever imagine. And really with that story, and like I was talking about earlier, you have to have your eyes on the Lord. And it brings me back to PG and Vonda and a couple more people always talking about this story. But Peter, when he steps out of the boat, and he has his eyes on the Lord, and he steps out, and God is telling him to come here, and he steps out of the boat and he starts walking on water, and he's got his eyes on the Lord, and everything's going okay, and then he starts noticing all this stuff, the waves crashing and all that stuff, and he starts to sink. And I think that exactly is how you should be when you're going forward. All them waves and all that worldly stuff that's getting you down, you gotta let it go. Exactly. And you gotta have your eyes on the Lord, and he will bring you to things that you can't do physically, mentally, spiritually, anything. And he will lead you to the direction that you need to be going. And I think that really, that story really is similar to what this chapter was, and how you should really be worried about your future. You don't even need to know your past anymore, your present, because God is going to make you a whole new creation in him, and you just need to step forward and keep on walking forward. And so as you go on with your life, I encourage you to think and speak in a positive way, and according to what God has for you, and not on your past or your present or anything that you're going through or have went through, because Jesus will pull you out of that. And you just have to have your trust in him, and you got to have faith in him, and you got to keep your eyes on him. And he will do things for you guys. But that's all I got.
I was thinking when he was talking that, we have a lot of similarities with the children of Israel. Is there anybody in here that God's brought you out of anything? Amen. Yeah, me. He brought them out of slavery, where they were tortured and beaten and imprisoned. He set them free, but they complained and complained and complained. They kept looking back, and even though they were going through a wilderness, they wanted to go back to where it was worse. Sometimes we keep looking at our circumstances, don't we? And we we can't see our future. Mom's favorite verse, Jeremiah 29:11. Does anybody know it?
For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you.
She loves that. God has a plan for you. A good plan to prosper you. And too many times we want to see our past, and we keep looking back. We want to live in our past, and we don't want to go forward because it's uncomfortable going where we don't know where we're going. Look at Abraham. God told him to leave where his family was, where he was comfortable, and just start going. Didn't tell him where he was going, just told him to go. And he was faithful. And he walked. And God multiplied everything that he had. He was talking about Lot. You know, their herds were starting to grow, and their herdsmen were fighting back and forth with each other. So he gave Lot the choice of where to go. Lot acts like us a lot of times, doesn't he? Oh, it's beautiful over here. Look at these big cities. Look at all this stuff over here that is so exciting. Let's go over there where all the sin and shame and all that stuff that's going to put us back in bondage. But yet Abraham took the other side where it may not have been as pretty or as plush and nice, but he prospered. God stood over him and prospered him, even though it was a harder life. But what happened to Lot? He went where all the sin was, and he lost his wife. She turned into a pillar of salt.
But you get for looking back.
Yeah, looking back. Looking back. Man. He had to protect the angels that came to visit. He offered up his daughters so that they would take his daughters, but they didn't want his daughters. They wanted the men. More sin. Yeah. So this was a good lesson. Let's step forward in faith. Let's move. Don't look back. Don't look at the storms around us.
Amen.
Keep our eyes on Jesus.